So again, welcome and thank you for joining. And again, we will start like usual with a short mindful breathing exercise to quiet our mind, to bring our mind in moment in present. Then we can try to have good motivation, intention for being here. Mm. One of the root of our problem, conflict, pain is our own ego, self-centered mind. As long as we have that self-centeredness, that ego, we will always find some problem, conflict with someone. And disturb our mind. Therefore, in order to free ourselves from conflict, problem, and the pain, we need to try to reduce and eliminate gradually the self-centered mind, the self-centeredness, the ego mind, egoistic mind. And to do that, it is not enough just to pray and wish to go away. We need to apply the right antidote. That can encounter such attitude. And that is by cultivating true love, compassion, and awakening mind of bodhicitta. And in order to generate and improve those positive state of mind antidotes, we need to train our mind through practice, meditations. And we need to integrate in our everyday life as much as possible those practice meditations. And to do that, we need to be, again, reminded, because very often we forget. And we continue to study. Therefore, may I ask coming here to listen, to engage in discussions, reflections, contemplations. May all of these become cause and conditions to reduce the selfish attitude, the egoistic mind, and to increase and improve true love, compassion, bodhicitta mind, and all the other positive spiritual realization of positive minds. And may it become cause and condition to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be greatest help and benefit to all sentient beings, including oneself. Okay?
So we'll take refuge once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge into enlightening, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodam soki chona la jonchu bardu dagni kapsu chi dagi chonen gepe sonangi jola penshir sange drupa sho sange chodam soki chona la jonchu bardu dagni kapsu chi Dagi chone gepe sonangi jola penshir sange druparsho.
이제 도저히 손에 어둠제 방배에 담배 춘내 된제배 고담대라 차차로 So we have just started few weeks ago this particular text by the Third Dalai Lama, and or Lamrim, the stages of the path. And within that, homage, and then how to listen, how to teach, listen with correct motivation. We finished in from the actual the practice itself. Then we spoke about discuss about the preliminary or the preparations before the actual meditations on the correctly relying on spiritual masters with a correct thoughts and actions. And before that, we also discuss, what kind of qualities that we need to look for to find a spiritual mentor or masters. Understanding what are those qualities, and on the basis of understanding this quality, and then finding a teacher who have those qualifications, authentic teachers. And once we find that, then we rely on those authentic, qualified teachers for their guidance, teaching, advices. And once we have made that relationship as having taken someone as our spiritual teacher or masters, then how can we rely correctly from outside, in terms of thoughts and in terms of actions. And so in that, here the author says, I think we're on page number 6, and where is how to rely on a spiritual mentor. And in that it mentions, we try to meditate, contemplate by recollecting the qualities of that spiritual mentor or masters, as well as by recollecting the kindness of the teachers, by recollecting the qualities, positive qualities, and the kindness of that. Then we try to develop strong sense of trust and respect. So in that, I think here it says, consider the countless way in which he is kind to you. He or she is kind to you, So we try to contemplate and recollect as so many different ways that you can. And so some of way that we can do here explains he is the root of all attainments. So we think, the spiritual mentor is the root of all our spiritual attainment. We cultivate all the spiritual realization experience by relying on that spiritual mentor. It comes by relying on, so seeing he's the root of that. The source of all goodness in this and future lives. Also by seeing, by correctly relying on the masters and by following their teachings and advice, we try to avoid all the unwholesome actions, and we try to engage in the wholesome actions. Through engaging in the wholesome action and avoiding unwholesome action, then we achieve all the happiness of this life and all future lives, and therefore again, the spiritual master become the source of all goodness, this and future life. The doctor also think that the teacher is like the doctor who eradicates the disease or mental disturbance with the medicine of Dharma. Again, think like we are the patients, we are the sick persons, because we have illness of this afflictive emotion, those disturbing negative emotions, such as anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, selfish attitude, all those mind that make us sick, and so see, the teacher is like the doctor who prescribe the right medications, right treatment to cure those sickness or afflictive emotions. If we follow the right advice and instructions, and if we apply and practice, then we can reduce and overcome those afflictive emotions. And so therefore, it's like the doctor, so see him as like doctors. And the Dharma as medicine, whom we receive from such spiritual masters. Although you have wandered in samsara since beginningless time, never before did you meet a spiritual teachers. Or if you did meet one, you did not correctly follow their teachings. Why? Because for you are not at Buddha, because you are still in samsara, lost and wandering. If we have found a correct teacher in the past, and if we have followed their advice, and if we really put the practice into the practice, those teachings, advice, then we know we should be free from the samsara by now. We must have achieved enlightenment. But we have still not achieved enlightenment. We are not free from samsara because either we didn't find the right teachers, or either we didn't practice or follow the teachings that they gave. We didn't follow them. That is. So then think, I have now met a spiritual guide and will try to practice as please him. So then think, make a strong determination, strong resolution, determination, is so wonderful and so fortunate that at the moment in this life, I found such a authentic, qualified spiritual masters. And it is not enough just to find qualified, authentic master, but most important is to follow those teachings and advice and put into practice. If we don't follow the advice, teachings, if we don't put into the practice, even Buddha Shakyamuni comes to you here at the moment, even you meet him, there's not much he can do. You can find the right doctor who diagnose your illness exactly what your illness is, who can prescribe exactly what cure is. If you don't take the cured medicine, there's nothing the doctor can do to heal you. And same thing, of course, finding such authentic qualified teachers is first step, but most important step next is to integrate those teachings into our life. And that is where really the transformations can come. That is where healing happens. That is where real change comes. And here it says, on individual level, such spiritual masters is even more kind than the Buddha himself, on individually for us. And so for that is where it is saying, is more kind to giving example, a bowl of simple food to someone dying of hunger, than to give a handful of golden coin to someone who has every luxury. You get it? So here he's saying that is the example, and then the actual meaning. For this reason, it is said that your personal spiritual mentor is kinder than even the Buddha himself. So of course, as we progress on our path, and when you reach certain realizations and on a certain higher path, then you have this ability to actually even receive a teaching from the Buddha. You have this ability to have the visions of the Buddhas, to see the Buddhas, to receive the Buddhas. But that is only when you have made huge progress. It's like you are in a luxury. You have all things, then you have made a huge progress in your path. But like when you are very ordinary, at the very beginning, very ordinary, we don't have that access to see the Buddha, have the vision of Buddha, to receive the teaching from the Buddha directly. And who helped you to do that? Who helped you to receive teachings and to help us is the spiritual mentor. It's like when you are very poor and hungry and you don't have anything, it's that. And so from that perspective, and here is saying, your spiritual mentor is even more kind to individually for oneself than the Buddha himself. The 5 stages, I think that is probably by the Nagarjuna, the 5 stages of the Tantra. In that it is said, so that is in that text, the 5 states states, self-born Buddha is a being gone to the perfections, fully enlightened. But kinder than Buddhas is your own teachers, for he personally give you the oral teachings. And that is what really benefit us. What really help us is through our practice, and where we receive how to practice. All the instruction, teaching is from the spiritual master or teachers, and so therefore that is why it's even more kind. Contemplate how your guru is kinder than all the Buddhas of past, present, and futures. So the more you contemplate that, the more you feel kindness of your spiritual masters or teachers. As I mentioned before, the more your mind is open, the more your mind is open, the more you receive. You become more receptive, and the more you receive, and the more you receive, the more you are able to make transformations. To receive spiritual instructions. So here giving some examples in the past. The Buddha made offering of possession, service, and practice. So Buddha himself, while he was on the path, before he became a Buddha, while he was on the path as a bodhisattva, or even before becoming bodhisattvas, he was, of course, also trying to receive teaching, instructions, advices from the masters, spiritual teachers. And when he was in that process of trying to receive those teachings, he gave, offering of possession, service, and practice, and many things. So giving some example. For example, in one of the Buddha's previous life, while he was on the path, he offered 100,000 pieces of gold to a teacher to receive not the whole teaching, only one half verse, 2 lines. That just shows how precious he regards each of those teachings. And those two words, half words, were that if there is birth, there is death. That's one line. Stopping this process is the bliss itself. So that was the 2 line or half words that he received. In order to receive those 2 words, he gave that much of offerings. Of course, then here he's saying, as long as there is samsaric rebirth, then aging, sickness, death are part of that. Stopping this process, when you stop samsaric birth, then then there's no more samsaric. When there's no more samsaric birth, then there's no more illness, aging, and death. And when there's no more of that, then you receive the blissful state, the nirvana. In another life, again, Buddha, on the path, as a king, he sacrificed his wife, his only child, for a single verse of Dharma. So he gave everything, he himself, his wife, everything, he gave. On another occasion, he made his body into the lamb and burned it as an offering to his spiritual mentor. In these and many other ways, he abandoned wealth, or he gave wealth, positions, and other objects of attachments. So, without any hesitations, in order to receive those teachings, he gave all of that because he understood those teachings were so precious. They were so precious to free from the samsara and to achieve fully enlightened. So with that understanding, without any hesitation, without any clinging, grasping, he gave. I think in the past, if you kind of read all the biography of some of the greatest masters in every different spiritual path, and especially within the different traditions, within the Buddhist traditions, those great masters went through, willing to go through so much hardship in order to receive those teachings. They went through so much hardship, and without any hesitations, Adishas went in the boat for 13 months from India to Indonesia now in order to go and receive the teachings. A lot of people made journey from Tibet to India in those times, years and years. A lot of people also died in those times. Many of masters. Within the Tibet, for someone like Lama Tsongkhapa, who came to study from, his village to that, in those times, probably it is at least many, many months. And that is so we have become too spoiled. We don't want to make efforts. We need the teaching. I don't want to go to the teacher should come to me. I don't want to drive. I don't want to fly. The teacher should be here. That is how our mentality sometimes become too spoiled. And then because of that, also maybe there's less appreciations. When you make such effort, you appreciate more. And if you appreciate more, you take more into your heart. You value it. You value it. You see its meaningful value, and you put more effort in integrating and practicing. Otherwise, you just think, not so much precious, not much valuable, and you don't hold it very dear and put into practice so much. So here it says, since you are a follower of Buddha, you should do likewise. And so here says also we should try to practice by following the example of the Buddha and those great masters, just like them. If you have heard many teachings from your spiritual teachers, is his kindness not immeasurable? So here saying, Buddha Shakyamuni, even just to receive 2 lines, he regarded how precious it is. And, and so here he's saying, if some people think that a teacher should be revered only if he has many of his qualities. They say, I go to him to hear his words on Dharma, not to see him. And I can see no great trait in him, so there is no need to reference. What a fool, what a fools. Whether he or she has all the qualities or not, but if he or she is giving you the right advice, right Dharma, right teaching, that is what it is. Of course, if the teachers even have a lot of good qualities, is better, even better. But even he or she might not have the greatest qualities, but if he or she is giving the right message, right teachings, how to practice, right path, then we should respect and regard highly because of what we receive from them. For instance, even your parents have no good qualities, you should appreciate their kindness, for by so doing great benefit arise. Even our parents some might have good qualities, some might have great qualities, but still, they are kind to give us a birth and to, bring us, especially when we're very vulnerable, very young. And with that, by remembering that kindness, we try to appreciate and respect, whereas by not appreciating them, only pain and confusion result. The same holds true of your attitude towards spiritual mentor. You feel that someone who gives you a little wealth is very kind. Yeah, if someone helps you financially, especially when you are in difficult times, we hold the person as a very kind, dear, and appreciate, respect, But the spiritual teachers give you every goodness of this and future life. Compared to that, here is saying what the advice, instruction, teaching, and the Dharma, the spiritual give you, if you utilize it correctly by integrating those practice in our everyday life, then you can achieve, not only temporary happiness, but true inner satisfactions, true inner peace and joy in this and futures, and so on. And so therefore, again saying, one should regard such spiritual mentor as a, appreciate and regard kindness, and that if you contemplate deeply, it becomes obvious that all stages of development, in our spiritual practice, from that of lay followers to those of bodhisattvas and the Buddhas. So lay or ordinary followers, and then more advanced practitioners like bodhisattvas and Buddhas, depend completely upon pleasing the spiritual masters by relying correctly through the thought and actions. And again, maybe it might come later. There are many examples of people who have attained full enlightenment in one short lifetime by correctly devoting themselves to the teachers. And if you please them with the offering of possession, service, intensive practice, there's no reason why you cannot do same. So, Milarepa is within the Tibetans practitioners, masters. Milarepa was one of the examples that we achieved, enlightenment in one lifetime. Again, if you read his biography, the way he relied on his teacher Marpa devotion is incredible, unimaginable. Same the Naropa did towards the Telopa. So if we read Dom Temba with Adishas and all of those great masters, even in our times, Lama Soba, Gyaltsab Lama Soba Rinpoche, another great example of this practice. His devotions towards his teachers is incredible, unshakable. And same with his Holiness Dalai Lama in all those. Thus, the importance of correctly relying upon all the kind spiritual teacher cannot be overemphasized. Of course, sometimes it's a little bit awkward or uncomfortable or to talk so much about those things because it seems like, that you have to respect me, that you have to think my kindness. It might feel that way sometimes, and sometimes we don't talk so much about that. Oh, what's that? Meeting with and being cared for in this and future life by spiritual mentor with whom you have a Dharma relationship is purely your responsibility to serve your spiritual guide well. So, if we do find, if we are able to find, if we are, maybe it could be from someone's yeah. So, yeah, if we are able to find a spiritual masters or teachers, and then if you kind of build up such spiritual and disciple student Dharma relationship, then is important to rely correctly in the right way. Without following a qualified teacher, there is no method to actualize enlightenment. This point is stressed in sutra and commentaries by the early Indian masters and Tibetan masters. Therefore, please practice as please the spiritual guide is said repeatedly, especially by the earliest elder masters. Do not regard this as an undesirable task, like a prison sentence for who does not want good fortunes. So here is those practice. You shouldn't be felt like that is a burden. Shouldn't feel like a burden being put in the prisons, but instead you should have joy in being service, in being carrying the the service and so forth. As stated in many sutta, tantra, and treatises, there is no faster or more powerful way to increase your store of merit than by correctly following a spiritual guide. So again, in many of them, it spoke about, when you make offerings, homage, prostrations, giving our service and so forth to the spiritual mentor, the guru, you create more merit than doing same thing to the Buddhas, because of our direct connections and the kindness. When training under spiritual teachers, be sure to maintain a correct attitude. And what is the correct attitude? What is the correct attitude? So then here, whatever happens, do not permit the thought to arise that he has fault or shortcoming. So, we try, not to have negative thoughts, negative feelings. That is important. Not to give rise to any bad feeling or negative thoughts. Meditate in this way, not with the words alone, but from the depth of your heart, until the mere sound of his name or thought of him make your hair twinkle and your eyes fill with tears. And it is Adishava, whenever he mentions or remember his teachers, Selingpa, he always hold his hand together because of remembering the kindness for all the spiritual realization he received, all the teachings that he received through, and when you remember the kindness through such meditation and practice, you feel the kindness of that, and you feel the trust and kindness. And when you feel that trust, faith, and kindness, then you become fear just rolls, and so it's saying, until it happens, you try to meditate in that way. In general, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas said that you should never see the ordinary falling of human beings in your spiritual mentor. If you see fall in him, consider it as a reflection of your impure attitude. Why? Because how are you able to really know what is and is not fault? It's very hard for us to know. Sometimes it's just our projections. It's not always necessary. If you see some fault in someone, it's not necessary always there's fault in someone. Someone sometimes is your mental projections. A lot of time we project a lot of things, depending on our state of mind. Depending on our state of mind. When our mind is positive state, we project something good in someone else. When our mind is negative, then we start to project negative things in that person. In that moment, it doesn't feel like we're projecting anything. It feels like there is something from that person's side. But sometimes we have found ourselves in such experience time to time. Sometimes we project faults into others. And so then here giving some examples from the past. Once when Arya Sangha did a retreat on Maitreya Buddha, he perceived Maitreya Buddha as a warm, written dog. So due to obscurations, even the Maitreya appeared in front of him, he couldn't see it as a Maitreya, but he saw instead a dog, which is full of worms. And later, when his obscurations cleared, then he was able to see later. That was later, when his obscuration was cleared, and he was able to see the Maitreya. But when Maitreya explained to that, he didn't believe that at the very beginning. He didn't believe. Maitreya says, he mentioned, how come you don't have compassion? I've been doing reading for 12 years, and you never show up. And Maitreya mentions, I will always hear. I was always here from the very beginning, but you didn't see me. And he couldn't believe. And because he didn't believe, the Maitreya said, you take me on your shoulder to the town. And he went with him on the town. People didn't see him in Maitreya. All people, some people saw him carrying a dog. Some people saw, one person saw the feet of the Maitreya, not the whole. And then Sangha was convinced, because it's due to your obscurations, he was unable to see, So anyway, also another example, Narava first, the great, scholar, master, Narava first saw his teacher, Telopa, as a lunatic, catching, fishing, and eating them alive. In the meeting between the father and son sutra, so that is the sutra, the Buddha, when the Buddha met his son, the father is the Buddha himself, and the son is the Rahula, the Buddha's son, and so they had a lot of conversations, and so that is what the sutra of meeting between the father and son. Buddha manifests in that sutra. Buddha explained, he says Buddhas can manifest as a devil in order to work for the goods of world. So saying sometime when it needed, even the Buddha can manifest not only as a nice, kind person, but also a very unkind, cruel person. Sometimes they can manifest. So Buddha can come in different form, sometimes very kind, gentle, loving, caring, and sometimes something like devil, not so kind, caring, can manifest that in order to benefit and help, or in order to subdue certain individuals. So therefore, you never know just from the external appearances. We cannot make a judgment here. He's saying you cannot make a judgment just from the external appearances. From the external appearances, someone might look like a devil, cruel, unkind, but he or she might be the most kind and compassionate persons. From external appearance, he or she might be looks like very stupid, but he or she might be the most intelligent one. From external appearance, it might look he or she is very ordinary devil, but in reality, it can be Buddha, bodhisattvas. So therefore, we cannot make a so easily judgment on the basis of external appearances. And same sometimes. So what it shows is, everything we see does not mean it's fact and reality. Okay? Everything we see with our eyes or everything we hear with our ears does not always mean that's the fact and reality. In view of those incidents, on those examples that gave, how can you believe that fault you see in your guru are real? General conviction that he is a manifestation of Buddha. So again, we cannot say for sure that there is a fault just because we saw fault. Sometimes it can be just our mental projections, our mind projections, So, but if we, let's say, we analyze at the very beginning, we thought that the teachers, all the qualifications, it seems like authentic, and we build up that spiritual and disciple relationship. We take that as our spiritual masters and take the relationship. But in reality, if the teacher does have some kind of real shortcoming or faults, then, physically we try to distance. But don't try to have so much negative thoughts and feelings. Do not have a bad negative thoughts and feelings. But in order to just kind of keep it on the shelf, on the altar, you don't need to interact. You don't need to be close. You don't need to interact anymore. But because he or she has been kind in the past by helping us through their teachings, instructions, and remembering those kindness, we keep them on our shelf, in our altar, not forgetting their kindness, their contributions at the very beginning. But now, because you see their faults and you see maybe they're not authentic as you might have thought, so then you don't need to interact anymore. And that, but otherwise, and yeah, if you see your teachers as an ordinary being, you receive that much from that teachers. If you see your teacher as a bodhisattvas, you receive that much. How much you will receive from bodhisattva. If you see your teacher as a Buddha, you receive more. So again, how much you are able to receive, it depends on your perceptions, what kind of perception you have. If you see as ordinary, then you receive something, but more less. As ordinary, how much normally you will receive. So that being the case here, saying general conviction in that he is a manifestation of Buddha. Again, if you want to really do a extensive meditation on that, then you can read the liberation in palm of your hand by Pabongwa Rinpoche, and there's extensive meditations for outlines on that. I'm not going to go in all details, okay, of that, but just wanted to mention for those who are interested, is taught in the root text of Guya Samaja Tantra and in Ashwa Ghosha's 50 verses on Guru devotion, that there is no graver negativity than saying or believing that your spiritual teacher has fault. Therefore, practice Guru Yoga as related in biography of Lama Domdemba without doubt or wavering. Domdemba was the main disciples of Adisha after Adisha came to India. And Adisha has not so many teachers, few teachers, but with those few teachers, he was very devoted, very devoted. Whereas some others, Kadamba master teachers have many, many teachers. And so in the Lamrim, there's a discussion because among the teachers, there are two different kind of traditional lineage or way to do. Like Domdemba, he has very little teachers, 4 teachers, he had 4 teachers. And then there was another teacher who had so many teachers. And then there were 2 Kadamba master discussing, should we follow Domdemba way or the other way? And then the conclusions is that when your mind is not so strong, and when your mind can change easily, and when your mind can see fall so easily, then it's better to have less teachers and fully dedicate. But the other teacher, when you don't, when you are able to see the teachers in a positive way and do not arise any negative thoughts and feelings, then even you have a lot of teacher, it doesn't matter. It's a good, you receive more. So that is the, so anyway, so that is the Domdembo biography. Domdembo's biography, he doesn't just run after every teacher. He check it very well. And it doesn't mean, even when he check it, it doesn't mean that the other teacher, he didn't go, they do not have qualifications. But he want to make sure once he create that kind of relation, he want to really be able to rely properly and with it correctly and be able to devote. And so therefore, he had less of that. And so, so again here, I think the author is saying, you know, sometimes we just kind of jump after all the teachers due to certain fame, reputations, titles, names, you know. That was not how the Domdemba was. So Domdemba was more careful. Once you have accepted, as I mentioned before, you don't have to accept someone as your spiritual teachers to receive teachings. You know, I think traditionally, you know, and I'm still kind of old tradition school, myself. So I might go to some talk or public talking like that, but I wouldn't go in the real teachings unless I'm ready to take someone as my guru or teachers. So that is kind of all fashion traditions style. I'm still that. So no, I will investigate, analyze before I go to the teachings, whether I'm ready to take that person as my teacher or not. So that, but as His Holiness Dalai Lama advised, in our modern time, and especially for the Westerner, it's not easy for them to investigate, analyze. Teachers comes and you don't really know much about them. For us, it's a little bit more easy to investigate. We have more sources to find out, you know, from the monasteries where the teachers come from, you know, not based on their general fame and reputation because they have written some books and the books become very famous, you know. Just because the book becomes very famous, the teacher becomes famous, doesn't mean that teacher is very, you know, let's say, ethical and so forth. So where you know, mostly you know from the society where they live in, because they have seen them all the time. You know, so the monasteries or people around monasteries. And so anyway, we have more access to do that kind of investigations. I think for you, you don't have that access to do investigations, you know. So therefore, you don't have to follow that old traditions, old-fashioned tradition like myself. Okay. For you, as His Holiness Dalai Lama advice, when you go to the teachings, you go as just like in a normal school, like hearing lectures. You know, you can just receive as a normal going to school lectures. And you, over the years, you can investigate, analyze, you know, whether that person is suitable, whether that person has a qualification, whether that is suitable to take as my spiritual mentor, teacher or not. And based on that, then you make your decisions. And so, and once you take that persons as your spiritual mentor, so that is where, once you have accepted spiritual mentor, that person as your spiritual mentor, meditate so as not to give rise to any disrespectful or unworthy thoughts, even your life is at stake, you know. So make sure, you know, you don't develop or arise any negative thoughts, you know, any bad thoughts, negative thoughts. When bad thoughts, a negative thought comes, try to work with that. Of course, not only spiritual teachers, the Buddha's teaching is not to have any negative thoughts or feelings or even to any beings. All the Lojong is all about that. Lojong practices, even you see someone mean and cruel, not to have negative thoughts. Still try to have compassions. Still try to see the positive side of that person's. So that is the whole, generally the teachings of Buddha is because the moment it gives rise to negative thoughts and, feelings, then it gives, rise to disturb your mind and all of that. So, yeah, so that is, and as I mentioned, if there is a kind of danger, if you feel there is danger, then again, physically keep distant, physically keep distant. You don't need to be around if you don't feel safe, and have negative impact being physically too close to that. And try to keep distant. And so again, yeah. And Lamrim Tsongkhapa Rinpoche wrote in his the song of the experience, the root of all causes producing happiness here and hereafter is the practice of relying in thought and actions upon the secret friend who revealed the path. Seeing this, follow him at any cost and please him with the offering of practice. I, a yogi, did that myself. You, a liberation seeker, should do likewise. So that is the advice Lamrim Tsongkhapa gave, and he followed. Not only he gave example, he himself practiced that. Again, Rinpoche gave this advice purely out of great compassion and not because he wanted his student to honor him or to glorify him. So relying correctly in thought and in actions. Relying correctly in thought by reflecting, recollecting all the positive quality of the spiritual mentor or the teachers. We try to develop sense of faith, devotions, trust. So that is, trying to cultivate that faith, that devotion, that trust by recollecting and remembering all the positive qualities. And by remembering and meditating and by remembering on the kindness of the guru or the spiritual mentor, by and feeling the kindness, then try to generate a strong sense of respect and sense of closeness in your heart. And then that is how we try to rely correctly in terms of thought, mind or thought. In terms of relying correctly in terms of actions, then, trying to make offering possible whenever, and that offering could means, your service, your skills, whatever, and then of course materials, efficient, and then, most important, the most way to please the teachers or guru, the supreme offering to repay the kindness is the offering of the practice. The offering of the practice. Milarepa said, because Milarepa, he had nothing, just one ball. He had nothing except one ball. And he said, I do not have any material things to offer to repay the kindness of my teachers. But I will offer the kindness of my teacher through my practice. And that is the best offerings. And that's the best way to repay the kindness. to take the advice and teaching in your heart and integrate those teaching in everyday life. Integrate, implement, integrate, and and then making progress in our spiritual path, from becoming more compassion, then a little bit more compassion than before, becoming a little bit less selfish attitude than that we used to be, becoming a little bit less anger than we used to be, becoming a little bit, less greedy than we used to be, being more generous than before we used to be, and so forth, being more patient than we. So, through such practice, we try to improve and transform a little bit. And those are the best. His Holiness Dalai Lama shared his stories, one time he was giving a Kalachakra empowerment in India, and of course, so many people come from all over the world, especially the Himalayan regions. And then there was one elderly Tibetan man from Nepal. And most times His Holiness, when you come to such event, to remember that event, you make certain commitments, and so anyway, this elderly says, during that initiation, he made this commitment not to get angry. And His Holiness, he was so inspired. He was so touched. He was so inspired, he was so touched to hear someone making commitment. Now I came to this empowerment Kalachakra initiation, and now I make commitment not to get angry and upset. His Holiness was so happy and His Holiness, he wasn't so sure how he might have been able to do. So after 1 year, he again, during one of those teachings, he came and he asked him how you are doing about that commitment you made. And he said he's doing quite well. Yeah, he said he was doing quite well. And His Holiness Dalai Lama said he was even so touched and very happy with that. So that again, His Holiness was extremely touched and happy for someone to make such commitment and to practice that, then making him offerings of, I don't know, $1,000, $100,000, and that is the best offering. The best offering we can make is the offering of our practice. The best way to repay the kindness of our spiritual master is through our practice, by integrating all the advice, instruction, teaching they gave to us. So that then human situations. So once we find spiritual mentor, guru, and then we rely on correctly, then how can we make our life meaningful? The reason to find such a spiritual mentor is to make our life meaningful. And so, in order to make our life meaningful, first we need to recognize how this human life has potential, how much potential it has. So then that is where it comes. At this point, the question may arise: if one rely upon a spiritual teacher who points out path to the enlightenment and try to please him by making him the offering of practices as he teaches, what exactly is meant by offering of practice? So as we just mentioned, the best supreme offering is the offering of practice. The best way to repay the kindness is to repay the kindness through the offering of practice. So if that's the case, then here is saying, what does really offering practice means? So that is where now it comes. Practice means taking upon yourself the responsibility of continually living in accordance with the Holy Dharma, the teaching given to you by your spiritual guide. So the Holy Dharma is basically, as one of the verses that we often recite, do not commit any non-virtuous action, perform only the virtuous actions, subdue your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. That is what it is. The Dharma, the Holy Dharma, is trying to avoid any kind of unwholesome actions that brings pain, suffering, and harm to others and oneself. Try to engage in wholesome actions that only help and benefit others and oneself. And in order to do that, in order to not to engage in unwholesome action, avoid unwholesome, engage in the wholesome action all the time, we need to subdue the mind. Without subduing the mind, it's very hard to do that. Without subduing the mind, it's hard to avoid hurting and harming someone or yourself. Without subduing the mind, it's very hard to be kind and compassionate and patient all the time. And so therefore, subdue your mind. Subdue your mind means through different meditation, practice, antidote, trying to reduce those harmful emotion and thought, feeling as much as possible, improving those positive state of mind. So that is the essence of the Buddha's teaching given to you by your spiritual guide. Through working with the teachers and with the law of cause and effect, you can take advantage of your extremely valuable human life, and valuable or precious human life, because it has so much potentials. And life form hard to find. Not only is it so precious and valuable, it's not easy to have such precious life to find again and again. It's like once found, it's hard to find it. Very and then meaningful or treasure, more precious than wish-fulfilling gem. And so here he's saying, the precious human life is more precious than wish-fulfilling jewel. Of course, if we have wish-fulfilling jewel, we will hold very valuable, very precious, very dear within us. So wish-fulfilling jewel is if you make a wish, of immediate wishes, comfort. I want to have a house on the ocean, by the oceans. You come there. I want to have a house on the Mount Everest. It's there. I want to drive a Ferrari. Red Ferrari is just show up here. Not only I want to have a red Ferrari, I want to have self-driving Ferraris. So any you wish, it comes. If there is something like that, wishfully, wouldn't you hold it very precious, valuable? Here is saying this precious human life is even more precious than that. We have to recognize that. We have to understand that. Sometimes we don't understand the value and preciousness of our human life. we regard external objects, sometimes even more precious than this human life, this precious human life. That clearly shows that we haven't understood real value and real preciousness of this human life. So that is where the author is trying to make points. Because with this precious human life, if we utilize it properly, correctly, if we direct this life in the right directions, not only we can achieve happiness of this life, we can create cause and conditions to have a happiness in the futures, not only temporary happiness, but we can also achieve, ultimate happiness, total freedom from all the suffering, all the karma, all the delusions. Permanently, totally, completely free from all the suffering and the cause of the suffering. There is that potential with this human life. There is the potential to achieve that, which fulfilling jewel cannot buy that happiness. The wish fulfilling jewel can give you a comfort, all these different objects that give you physical comfort and that, but that wish fulfilling jewel cannot buy you the true liberation nirvana. But with this human life, if you use correctly and direct in the right direction, you can achieve that. Not only that, you can achieve fully enlightened, fully awakened state. Not only you are not free from all the delusions and suffering and obscuration, but you have this incredible, limitless wisdom, compassion, skillful means to be greatest benefit to all other sentient beings, unconditionally, unbiased, tirelessly, day and night, that you have that potential. You can achieve, state that. And so therefore, when we really value and understand the precious and value of human life, then we wouldn't think of destroying this life when we encounter some challenges and difficulty in our life, because our life is because we have some challenges with our financial situations, because we have some challenges in our relationship, because we have some challenges in our workplaces, or different challenges that we might encounter and face in our life. Because this human life is not only about that. There's much more potential, more than that. You can achieve much more than that. There's the potential in that, because you really understood the true value and preciousness of that life. But when we don't understand that, then sometimes when we encounter some challenges, then we might think it's better, better to end the life, not being able to deal with those challenges and difficulty, because we haven't understood the preciousness of that, So anyway, I will stop here. I can take 1 or 2 questions if there is any questions.
Are there any questions?
Questions online, please raise your hand.
Sorry, are there any questions on Zoom? If not, I'll start in the room here. Hi, does anyone have any questions? Yes, so I have a couple questions.
Yes, please.
They're from, actually, thank you so much about speaking about Guru devotion and correctly following the Guru. It's been so wonderful for me as a student. You're a student for all these years, and I'm seeing you teach about it now. So last week, when this is more technical stuff, when you were Geshe, you mentioned Om Sobawa Shuddha Sawadama Sobawa Shuddha Hum and how we dissolve into emptiness. My question is in the other practices, there's that one verse, may the ground be pure, free from the roughness of pebbles and so forth. I think it's Tam Che Duni Sati.
Mhm.
And that's in the other practices. Is that also dissolving into emptiness? You know, it's another Ganden Lagema and all those other.
Well, you can practice that in any places, any practice, dissolve into emptiness, from emptiness, then manifestation of that pure light. And that is, there's kind of nothing wrong in that, and it can be. But in generally, that practice is normally, before that you have already dissolve your ordinary beings and whole environment into emptiness, and then you arise as a deity, and from that arising from the deity, then you purify the environment and transform the environment. That is one thing. And then, of course, in some others, what do you call, lower Tantara, then it's just kind of purifying and manifesting the ordinary environment into something pure and something celestial. Yeah.
So from what I'm understanding is in those lower tantra ones, because I never dissolved everything into emptiness. I just visualized everything just being pure and harmonious and beautiful.
Yeah, that is
That's-
just fine.
okay.
Also, especially in the lower Tantara, that's
Okay.
also fine. Yeah.
All right. Any questions, anyone else?
Didn't you have two?
Oh, I had a couple other just little questions. There's
Okay.
one here. Michael has one. Please go ahead, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Geshe, I would just want to make sure I understood something you said earlier. I think I heard it right, that if I'm at a time in my life where my ability to change kind of like drift with the wind, that's when I should have very few teachers. But when I'm at a time when I'm really rooted, that's when I can have more teachers. Is that what you said?
Michael, could you repeat your question and just speak maybe a little bit more to the mic and a little bit more slowly? Sorry.
That's right. During your talk, you said there are times when we can have only a few teachers and times when we might have a lot of teachers. And I think you said that at the times when we should have very few teachers is when we are subject to change quickly. Because we hear something, I think what you meant is we hear something, so we change, and we hear something else, and we change, we hear something else, and we change. But if I'm much more stable in my belief, in my practice, then I can have more teachers. Is that correct?
There is a, I didn't exactly say that. What I said is, among the masters, Katamba master, there was two approach. Domjamba approach was have less teachers and be more devoted to them. That is one approach. The other approach is, I don't remember the name of the other Katamba masters, that who has many, many teachers. And of course, when you have so many teachers, probably it's more difficult to devote yourself to all of them. Probably you might be devoting a few of them, but so there's those two approach, and one can follow whatever approach is most suitable to oneself. But in one of the Lamrims, there was two Kadamba masters who were discussing about those two different approach, which is better for us to follow. And in that Lamrim, it mentions that for us, where negative thoughts, negative feeling could arise more easily, because our mind is not so stable, it's hard to see everything as a positive and good, and where it is easy to see faults in our teacher and so forth. So then in that, for those, then it's better to have less teachers. not too many teachers. But if we don't have that danger of having too many negative thoughts or seeing too many faults, and all, then of course you can have many teachers. So I think that was what I kind of meant. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you very much, Geshe. That was
Okay,
wonderful.
thank you. Yeah. So again, I think as I mention all the time, the beauty of the Dharma or teachings is not rigid. There are different approaches, and you see which approach suits you better. Bottom-up approach are best for individuals, So you cannot say this approach is best for everyone. And so there's two approach, and then we try to see ourselves, our mind, and how our mind works, and according to that, then we can follow either of those approach, whatever is more beneficial and suitable for us. Yeah.
And I have one more question, and this is, Patty, this is based on your question. Last week, Patty asked, the difference between the refuge field and the merit field. And so, and Geshe, I believe your response was, when we were talking about dissolving the merit field, where if someone's doing a retreat and they're doing many sessions a day, they may keep it there and dissolve it on the last session. So I was wondering, Geshe, in our everyday practice, I just wanted to verify. Sometimes, we might keep the merit field up there in case we haven't finished, in case we got interrupted, or perhaps you do 35 Buddhas in the morning and you're going to do it in the evening. Would you keep the merit field there just for support and blessing?
Yeah, you can do that. Okay. And then before you go to bed or your last session or practice of that, you can dissolve it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone
Barbara,
else?
go ahead and unmute.
Hi, Geshe.
Hi.
This is in regards to checking on teachers. It's like Khenche Rinpoche. I did no checking on him at all because of the fact that you recommended him. And I trust you. And then another teacher recommended you and said that you were credible.
Again, what was the next?
Another teacher recommended you, Geshe.
So I trust in that teacher. So I didn't check on you. So I guess my point is, as long as I stick with FPM teachers, I should be okay. Is that correct?
I hope so. I can only hope. I can say for sure, Khenche Rinpoche, you wouldn't have any problem with him. He's turning 84. He has lived his life, and we have seen all his life until now. And if there hasn't had any kind of problem, scandals, all of that, and kind, compassions, and any problem with unethical problems so far, I don't see, any problem with that. With me, all the best. All the best. But as I mentioned before, if you find some problem, then you just hit me with water on the altar. And then you don't have to deal with me. You don't have to deal with it. You don't need to deal anymore. You just put on the altar, on the shelf. This one chapter, closed chapter, that you can stay at the altar, and that is done. Okay. Okay. Dedications. Yeah, we can do the medicine Buddha 3 times, even though he's only the Dalai Lama's surgery, knee surgery was successful, being discharged from the hospital, now recovering, and we know that takes a long time, and especially with like His Holiness age, in being 89 now, or turning 89 soon. So therefore, we continue to recite. So again, you can His Holiness Office and Tibetan government has requested to recite medicine Buddha mantras or practice, Tara practice mantras, Avalokiteshvara mantras. If you can do practice, even you cannot, you can do those different mantras and then dedicate for the complete and quick recovery of from the surgery. Yeah.
Thank you. Michael, page 11, please. Thank you. Taya ta om be kanse be kanse maha be kanse be kanse raja samugate so ha Taya ta om be kanse be kanse maha be Kanse be kanse raja samugate so taya ta kanse be kanse maha be kanse be kanse raja samugate so And then we'll follow with the dedication prayers. Shanti Deva's verse, Michael, it's on page 5. Of the Sunday prayer packet. Thank you so much. Thanks, Shayla. May all beings everywhere plagued by the sufferings of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by the depression. May the blind see forms, the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Gangri Rawe Korwe Jinkan Dear Pendan Dewan Bali Jungwe Ne Shen Raising Wa Tenzing Gyatso Yi Jape Site Bardu Tengyo Chi. And for the long lives of all of our gurus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you.